Dr. Jessica Anderson's boots crunched against Europa's icy surface as she approached the newly uncovered ruins. The structure's obsidian walls seemed to absorb the harsh spotlights from their excavation equipment, creating an unsettling void in the otherwise pristine white landscape. She adjusted her suit's heating elements, more out of habit than necessity. Even after 3 years of working on Jupiter's moon, she couldn't shake her Earth instincts about ice and cold. "Dr. Anderson," her assistant's voice crackled through the comm. "You need to see this. Northwest corner, about 2 meters up." She turned, watching Tom Martinez's suit lights bob in the distance. The young archaeologist had proven invaluable during this dig, especially after half their team quit following the equipment malfunctions last month. Jessica knew better. There was nothing wrong with their equipment. Something about this site was making other species uncomfortable. As she approached, Tom's light illuminated a section of the wall where the ice had been carefully cleared away. The markings caught her eye immediately. They weren't the usual geometric patterns they'd found at other sites. These were words. "Is that Xanthari script?" she asked, reaching out to trace the alien characters with her gloved hand. "Yes, but look below it." Tom adjusted his light. "That's Ruxi text, and below that, I count at least 14 different alien languages just on this section." Jessica felt her pulse quicken. "Help me clear more of the ice." For the next 3 hours, they carefully exposed more of the wall. With each revealed section, Jessica's excitement grew, tempered with increasing unease. 47 distinct alien languages covered the wall's surface, some from species that had gone extinct thousands of years ago. But it wasn't the number of languages that disturbed her, it was the message they all shared. "The temples are not meant to be opened," she read aloud, her voice barely a whisper in her suit's comm. "Every single one says exactly the same thing." "Maybe we should listen," Tom suggested, his voice carrying an edge of nervous laughter. "I mean, when 47 species all leave the same morning." Jessica shook her head, already photographing every inch of the writings. "Notice anything odd about the carving depths? These weren't all made at the same time. Some are centuries older than others. These aren't original to the structure. They were added later by different species at different times." Her mind was already racing ahead. If these were warnings added after the fact, what were they warning against? And why did every species that encountered these structures feel compelled to leave the same message? Back in their pressurized HAB module, Jessica immediately began cross-referencing their discovery with other sites. Her suspicions were confirmed within hours. Similar warnings appeared at every known temple site across explored space. The Galactic Archaeological Database listed them as religious warnings, to be respected and obeyed. She was composing her preliminary report when her console chimed with an incoming priority message. Her stomach tightened when she saw the sender. The Galactic Council's Archaeological Oversight Committee. The message was brief. "All research activities at Site Europa 7 are hereby suspended pending review. Maintain site quarantine protocols. Do not approach the structure. A council representative will arrive within 48 hours." Jessica leaned back in her chair, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She'd been doing this long enough to know. You didn't get this kind of reaction for nothing. The council was worried about something. "Tom," she called out, already reaching for her suit helmet. "Suit up. We've got 48 hours to find out what they don't want us to see." As they stepped back out onto Europa's surface, Jessica felt that familiar mix of excitement and terror that came with any major discovery. But this time was different. This wasn't just another alien ruin. This was something important enough to make the most powerful governing body in known space nervous. The temple's dark walls loomed before them, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. Whatever they found in the next 48 hours would change everything. She was sure of it. Dr. Jessica Anderson hadn't slept in 36 hours when Dr. Michael Torres arrived at her lab on Europa Station. The holographic display surrounding her workstation pulsed with data from hundreds of temple sites, casting an eerie blue glow across her tired features. "You look terrible," Torres said, setting down 2 cups of actual Earth coffee. A luxury out here. Tell me this breakthrough of yours is worth burning through my emergency leave. Jessica grabbed a cup, savoring the aroma. Michael, look at this. She gestured at the display, and the hundreds of temple locations coalesced into a 3-dimensional map of known space. What do you see? Torres squinted at the pattern. As head of Synorchaeological Energy Studies at MIT, he'd mapped plenty of ancient sites before. They're clustered. No, not clustered. There? His eyes widened. They're equidistant. Exactly. Jessica highlighted the distances between each site. Every temple is exactly 147.3 light-years from its nearest neighbor. That's not natural distribution. These sites were chosen. Could be religious significance to the number, Torres suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. Jessica shook her head. That's not all. She overlaid new data, and pulses of energy began flowing between the temple markers. I've been compiling energy readings from every site we have data for. Look at the pattern. Torres leaned closer, coffee forgotten. They're talking to each other. After all this time. More than talking. Watch this. She accelerated the playback. The energy pulses formed complex patterns, flowing through the temple network like blood through veins. It's a network, Michael. These aren't separate sites. They're nodes in a single system, one that's still active. Torres whistled low. No wonder the council's nervous. Have you figured out? A crash from the corridor cut him off. Both scientists froze, listening to the sound of hurried footsteps and whispered voices. Get the data core, a muffled voice commanded. Wipe everything else. Jessica moved fast, transferring critical files to her secure backup as Torres sealed the lab door. They'd prepared for this after the warning signs. Equipment failures, missing data, corrupted backups. The door's security panel sparked, smoking as it was overridden. Jessica quickly swallowed her data chip, an old spy trick she'd learned from her mother. The door slid open with a hiss. 3 figures in unmarked black environment suits burst in, weapons raised. They moved with military precision, but their suits bore no insignia. Not council forces then. Step away from the consoles, the leader ordered, voice distorted by their suit's speaker. Torres raised his hand slowly. We're just researchers. Whatever you're looking for. The intruder fired. Torres dropped, a tranquilizer dart protruding from his neck. Jessica dove behind her workstation as more darts whistled past. She triggered her lab's emergency protocols, and the room plunged into darkness. In the chaos that followed, Jessica managed to slip past the intruders. She sealed them in the lab, remembering Torres's unconscious form with a pang of guilt. But he'd understand. She had to protect the data. Hours later, in a secure conferencing room, Jessica received word that Torres was safe, but had no memory of the attack. The intruders had vanished, along with most of her lab's equipment, but they'd failed to get what they really wanted, the pattern she'd discovered. The temple network is more than just ruins, she explained to the secure channel connecting her to Torres, now recovering in a medical bay on Mars. It's still functioning, still running some kind of program, and someone really doesn't want us to figure out what it is. The timing's too perfect, Torres replied, his voice hoarse. How did they know I was coming? Jessica pulled up a new data set, this one showing energy fluctuations at the Europa Temple. Because the network told them. Look, there was a massive energy spike right before you arrived. It's like the temples are aware. They know we're getting close to something. Close to what? I don't know yet. Jessica overlaid the temple network map with known extinct civilizations. The correlation was undeniable. But every species that's figured it out has vanished without a trace, and I think we just got their attention. The temple network pulsed in her display, its rhythms now seeming less like data and more like a heartbeat. Whatever secrets it held, they were worth killing for, and Jessica had a feeling they were running out of time to uncover them. Kate Sullivan was having a terrible day, even before she punched through an alien temple wall. The mining operation on Kepler 186 was already 3 weeks behind schedule. Her equipment kept malfunctioning around the massive black structure, and now her drilling rig was acting possessed. "Come on, you piece of..." She fought with the controls as the massive machine lurched toward the temple wall. The diagnostic screen showed all systems normal, but the rig moved with a mind of its own. In the last second before impact, Kate swore she saw the temple's surface ripple, like black water anticipating the splash. The crash shook the whole mining platform. Warning klaxons blared as atmosphere rushed into the breach, but Kate barely noticed them. Her mind was expanding. Information poured into her consciousness, schematics, equations, concepts that humanity wouldn't discover for centuries. She understood how to fold space, manipulate gravity, tap into dimensional energies that human science hadn't even theorized yet. "Sullivan, do you copy?" Her supervisor's voice crackled through her helmet comm. "Get out of there now." But Kate couldn't move. The knowledge flow was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. She saw the temple network spreading across the galaxy like a vast neural network, each structure a synapse in some impossibly vast mind. And now that mind was sharing its thoughts with her. The emergency response team found her laughing in her rig's cabin, drawing complex equations on her tablet with trembling fingers. Within hours, the Galactic Council's containment teams arrived, led by Ambassador Zrixtal of the Zenthuri Confederation. "This is unprecedented," the ambassador's translator rendered their chittering speech. "No species has ever breached a temple without catastrophic consequences. By all known records, you should be dead, Ms. Sullivan." Kate looked up from her tablet, where she'd been sketching designs for a device that could detect quantum fluctuations across parallel universes. "Maybe you were reading the warning signs wrong," she said. "They weren't saying, 'keep out.' They were saying, 'wait for the right people.'" The ambassador's compound eyes flickered with interest. "Perhaps we should." They reached for the breach in the temple wall. The moment their appendage touched the energy field still shimming in the gap, they collapsed with a horrific screech. The medical team barely managed to stabilize the ambassador. The diagnosis: severe neural shock, with patterns matching cases of other non-humans who'd attempted to access temple data. But Kate? Her neural scan showed increased activity across all regions of her brain, new neural pathways forming by the hour. Dr. Jessica Anderson arrived 12 hours later, having pulled every string she had to get clearance for the site. She found Kate in a makeshift lab, surrounded by drawings and equations that made the finest synorchaeologists look like kindergartners. "It's beautiful," Kate said without looking up. "The whole network. It's like, imagine the internet, but built with strands of reality instead of fiber optics, and we're the only ones with the right browser to read it." Jessica studied the equations covering the walls. "Why us? Why humans? Because we're weird." Kate finally looked up, her eyes fever-bright with understanding. Every other spacefaring race, they evolved to be perfectly rational, logical, single-minded. But humans, we dream, we imagine, we believe impossible things before breakfast. We're the only species that can hold two contradictory ideas in our heads and not break. She pointed to a particularly complex diagram. This is how you fold space-time. But to do it, you have to simultaneously believe in 11 different impossible things. Any purely logical mind would snap trying to process it. But a human mind, she grinned, we do it naturally. Before Jessica could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. On screens throughout the lab, they watched as council ships entered orbit, far more than necessary for a simple containment operation. "They're afraid," Kate said, oddly calm. "They should be. Because this," she gestured to the temple breach still shimmering with strange energies. "This is just the start. The temples aren't containing something dangerous. They're containing something wonderful. And it's meant for us." Jessica's tablet chimed with an urgent message from Torres. Similar breaches were appearing at other temple sites. The network was waking up, and humanity was about to learn what it had been built for. The Temple of Giza wasn't supposed to exist. Every scan of Earth's pyramids over the last century had shown nothing but limestone and empty chambers. But as Dr. Jessica Anderson stood in the previously undiscovered chamber 300 feet beneath the Great Pyramid, she knew this would change everything. "How did we miss this?" Torres whispered, his voice echoing off walls covered in the same obsidian material they'd found across the galaxy. His broken arm was still in a sling from the lab attack, but nothing could have kept him away from this discovery. "We didn't miss it," Kate Sullivan replied, her fingers trailing over symbols that seemed to shift under her touch. Since the Kepler incident, she'd become their key to understanding temple technology. It wasn't here until recently. The network is evolving, revealing itself. Jessica's tablet beeped as it finished analyzing the chamber's dating results. "This material is over 4 million years old," she announced. "That's before humans, before we were engineered," Kate finished, her voice distant as she accessed knowledge the temple had given her. "Look at this section here." The wall she touched shimmered, and a holographic display filled the chamber. It showed Earth, but not their Earth. Early hominids appeared, followed by streams of data showing genetic modifications, carefully planned breeding programs, subtle nudges to evolution itself. "The precursors," Torres breathed. "They didn't just find us. They made us." The display showed how human consciousness was shaped over millions of years. The capacity for abstract thought, the ability to dream, the talent for holding contradictory ideas, all carefully crafted traits. "Every irrational thing about human consciousness," Jessica said, watching millennia of engineering flash by, "was intentionally designed. But why? Why spend millions of years creating us?" The answer came in the form of a new hologram, the visualization of reality itself. Not just their universe, but others, an infinite array of dimensional planes stacked like pages in a book, and between them, growing larger, tiers in the fabric of existence itself. "The multiverse is bleeding," Kate explained, her temple-enhanced mind processing the data. "Reality itself is coming apart." The precursors knew it was happening, but they couldn't stop it. Their minds were too rigid, too logical. They needed something different. They needed us, Torres realized. Our irrational minds, our ability to believe in the impossible, are the exact traits needed to perceive and repair multidimensional tiers. Jessica finished. "The temples aren't just libraries or tools. They're repair stations." A deep rumble shook the chamber. Above them, they could hear the sounds of heavy equipment. "The council found us," Torres said, checking his tablet. "They're bringing in drilling equipment. Big stuff." Kate touched another section of wall, and new information flooded her consciousness. Her eyes widened in horror. "We need to get out of here. Now." "The other temples, they're being systematically destroyed. Something is coming through the tiers, something that feeds on collapsed realities." "How many temples are left?" Jessica asked, already packing her equipment. 63, Kate replied. "Out of an original network of 300. If we lose much more, the whole system will fail. Reality itself will start to unravel." Another explosion rocked the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling. "The emergency exit." Torres pointed to a section of wall that looked different from the rest. "Kate." She pressed her hand to the wall, and a passage appeared. As they rushed through, Jessica glanced back at the chamber. The holograms were still playing, showing humanity's engineered evolution. 4 million years of careful development, all leading to this moment. "You know what this means," she said as they emerged into a hidden tunnel. "Every human trait that other species considered primitive or illogical was actually an advanced technology," Torres finished. "We're not just random evolution. We're the most advanced piece of engineering in known space." Above them, the sounds of drilling grew louder. The council was coming, desperate to contain what humanity had discovered. But it was too late. The truth was out, and with it, humanity's true purpose in the universe. As they raced through the tunnel, Kate's mind was already connecting to other temples, sharing what they'd learned. The network was awakening, preparing for its true purpose. The only question was, could they save enough of it in time? The Martian dust storm provided perfect cover for their escape from the research facility. Dr. Jessica Anderson pulled her rebreather tighter as she watched the Council's patrol ships sweep overhead, their search beams diffused by the swirling red clouds. "They're using quantum detection arrays," Kate Sullivan whispered through their secure comm channel. "Standard issue tech won't hide us for long." Since interfacing with multiple temples, her understanding of advanced technology had grown exponentially. Even now, her augmented mind was processing data from the remaining temple network. "How close are they to the Olympus site?" Torres asked from his position near their hidden rover. "Too close." Kate's eyes unfocused briefly as she accessed the temple network. "They've already breached the outer chambers, but they can't access the core systems without." She suddenly clutched her head, crying out in pain. Jessica caught her before she fell. "Kate." "The Singapore temple," Kate gasped. "They'd just destroyed it. 62 left." "I felt it. I felt reality tear a little more." A new alert flashed across their helmet displays. Movement from the northeast. Not Council forces this time. The signatures were all wrong. "Temple destroyers," Torres confirmed, checking his scanner. 3 teams, heavy equipment. They're not even trying to hide anymore. Jessica helped Kate to the rover. "Why would anyone deliberately destroy the temples if it risks collapsing reality?" "Because they're not from our reality," Kate said, her voice stronger now. "The beings coming through the tiers, they consumed collapsed realities. Each temple they destroy weakens the dimensional barriers a little more. They're farming us." The rover's engines hummed to life, its stealth systems engaging. They had 10 minutes to reach the Olympus temple before the storm cleared. 10 minutes to save humanity's best chance at understanding their true purpose. "New problem," Torres announced from the driver's seat. "Council dropship, directly ahead. They've got a containment team, and is that Ambassador Zerkstall." Through the swirling dust, they could see the Zenthari ambassador directing teams with sophisticated scanning equipment. After their failed attempt to interface with the Kepler temple, the Zenthari had become obsessed with understanding why humans could access the temples while they couldn't. The loading bay, Kate pointed to a partially concealed entrance on the temple's western face. "The network can hide us, but I'll need direct contact with the temple systems." Jessica checked their weapons, non-lethal stunners only. They weren't killers, but they weren't going down without a fight either. "Torres, how's your arm?" "Good enough to cause a distraction." He grinned, pulling up the rover's external speaker controls. "Always wanted to try this trick." The rover's speakers suddenly blasted an old Earth emergency signal, the sound carrying eerily through the Martian atmosphere. As predicted, the Council teams turned toward the noise, weapons raised. Kate slipped out first, her connection to the temple network helping her avoid the patrol patterns. Jessica followed, while Torres drove the rover in a wide arc, keeping the Council forces focused on him. They were halfway to the loading bay when the ground trembled. A massive drilling vehicle crested the ridge behind them. Temple destroyers. "Run." Jessica shoved Kate forward, as energy beams sliced through the dust storm. The temple destroyers weren't using stunners. Kate reached the temple wall first, pressing her hand against its surface. Hidden mechanisms whirred to life, but too slowly. The drilling vehicle was almost upon them. Then Torres' voice cut through their comms. "Duck." The rover burst through the dust storm at full speed, slamming into the drilling vehicle's treads. The impact sent both machines spinning, creating chaos among the Council forces and temple destroyers alike. Kate got the door open just as Torres sprinted from the wreckage. They pulled him inside as energy beams crisscrossed the space he'd occupied seconds before. As the temple sealed itself behind them, Kate connected to its systems. Her eyes widened. "No, we're too late. They've already planted charges in the lower chambers. This entire temple is rigged to blow. They had minutes to prevent the destruction of one of humanity's most important temples, with hostile forces on both sides, and no way out. Kate looked at her companions, her expression grim. Anyone want to learn how to defuse multidimensional explosives? Cut the blue crystalline strand, Kate directed, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. The temple's knowledge flowed through her mind like a digital river, teaching her the impossibly complex art of multidimensional demolitions. Jessica's hands didn't shake as she manipulated the strange device. The bomb, if you could call it that, looked more like a piece of abstract art, with strands of reality itself woven into its structure. Blue crystal, there are 3. The one that exists in all dimensions simultaneously, Kate clarified, as if that made perfect sense. Behind them, Torres kept watch on their pursuers' progress through the temple's internal sensors. They've breached the second containment door, he reported. Council forces are engaging the temple destroyers in the upper chambers. It's getting messy up there. Jessica located the strand Kate described, or rather, her mind accepted the possibility of its existence, and then she could see it. This was why humans were chosen. Any other species would have gone mad trying to comprehend an object that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Got it, she said, preparing to sever the strand. Wait, Kate's eyes went wide. Something's wrong. The temple network. It's showing me something. This isn't just a bomb. It's a key. The temple's inner chamber suddenly hummed to life, holographic displays filling the air around them. But these weren't the clean, organized data streams they'd seen in Egypt. These were raw, desperate messages from the precursors themselves. They're coming. A translated voice echoed through the chamber. We underestimated their hunger. The barriers between realities are failing faster than predicted. The temples must be completed. The engineers must be ready. Engineers? Torres asked, momentarily distracted from the security feeds. Is that what they called humans? Kate nodded slowly, processing the new information flooding her consciousness. We're not just supposed to repair reality. We're supposed to redesign it. The temples aren't just repair stations. They're drafting tables for restructuring the entire multiverse. An explosion rocked the chamber. The security feeds showed temple destroyers breaking through the final barriers, with council forces close behind. But Jessica barely noticed. She was watching the holographic message continue to play. The engineers must understand. The precursor's message continued. The temples are not separate entities. They are neurons in a vast mind, waiting to be awakened. When enough engineers achieve synchronization, the true purpose of the network will be revealed. Synchronization, Kate whispered. Like what happened to me at Kepler, but bigger. The temples aren't tools we're supposed to use. They're parts of ourselves we haven't grown into yet. Another explosion, closer this time. Torres raised his stunner. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Kate reached out, placing one hand on the bomb and another on the temple wall. The temple destroyers didn't plant these devices to destroy the temples. They're trying to trigger a premature awakening. If the network activates before enough humans are synchronized, reality itself would tear apart. Jessica finished, finally understanding. That's what they want. They're not just feeding on collapsed realities. They're farming them. The chamber doors began to glow red with cutting torches. They had seconds at most. Options? Torres asked, taking position behind a pillar. Kate's eyes glowed with temple energy as she accessed the full power of the network. We can't stop the awakening now. It's already started. But we can control it. The precursors left us a backup plan. She turned to Jessica. Remember what I said about believing impossible things? Jessica nodded. Good. Kate managed a small smile. Because I'm about to ask you to believe about 15 of them. Simultaneously. She grabbed Jessica's hand, placing it on the temple wall next to her own. The third impossible thing is that we're both here and everywhere at once. The seventh is that time flows backwards and forwards and sideways all at once. The 11th is that you're yourself, and also every version of yourself across all realities. As Kate spoke, reality began to blur around them. The temple destroyers burst through the door just as Jessica's mind expanded across the network, touching every remaining temple simultaneously. The last thing she heard before her consciousness exploded across dimensions was Kate's voice. The 15th impossible thing. That this is only the beginning. Reality fractured like broken glass around Kate Sullivan as she observed events from 1,000 perspectives simultaneously. She was in the Mars Temple with Jessica and Torres. She was in orbit watching Council ships engage the temple destroyers. She was in every remaining temple across the galaxy, feeling reality strain against the tears in its fabric. And she was watching the beings that came through those tears. "They're beautiful," she whispered, her voice echoing across multiple dimensions. "And absolutely terrifying." The temple destroyers had shed their humanoid forms, revealing their true nature. They existed in geometries that shouldn't be possible, their bodies folding through dimensions like paper origami crafted by a mad god. Reality collapsed in their wake, feeding their impossible hunger. "Kate," Jessica's voice pulled her back to their immediate crisis. "We're losing containment." The Mars Temple shuddered as multiple realities tried to occupy the same space. Through the temple network, Kate could see similar scenes playing out across the galaxy. The Council forces had finally realized the true threat, turning their weapons on the temple destroyers instead of the humans, but conventional weapons were useless against beings that existed in multiple dimensions. "The synchronization is spreading," Torres reported, monitoring the global feeds. "Every human within 100 miles of a temple is starting to connect to the network. They're changing." He was right. Kate could feel them. Thousands of human minds lighting up across the galaxy like neurons firing in a vast brain, each one gaining the ability to perceive and manipulate multiple realities. The Precursor's plan was working, but too slowly. "We need more time," Jessica said, her consciousness now spread across multiple temples as well. "The network needs at least 60% of humanity synchronized before we can implement the full repair protocols." An explosion of unreality ripped through the temple's upper chambers. Reality eaters poured through the breach, their impossible forms causing physical laws to break down around them. The temple's internal temperature dropped to absolute zero and boiled at 1,000,000 degrees simultaneously. "Focus," Kate commanded, her voice carrying through the temple network to every synchronized human. "Remember the impossible things, all of them at once. Reality isn't fixed, it's whatever we believe it to be." Across the galaxy, humans began to fight back. A teenager in Tokyo believed that light could think, and solar flares developed consciousness, burning away reality eaters. A farmer in Kenya imagined that gravity could distinguish friend from foe, and the beings found themselves crushed by selective force fields. But it wasn't enough. For every reality eater they destroyed, 2 more emerged from the growing tears. "The Council ships are falling back," Torres reported. "Reality distortions are making their tech useless. We're on our own." Kate accessed the temple's deepest protocols, the ones the Precursors had hidden for exactly this moment. "No," she said, "we're not alone. We just need to wake up the rest of us." She reached out through the network, touching every human mind on Earth and across the colonies. Not to synchronize them. There wasn't time for that. Instead, she showed them what she could see. The truth about reality, about humanity's purpose, about the danger they faced. 8 billion minds experienced dimensional awareness for a single second. The effect was explosive. Reality itself seemed to hiccup as humanity's collective consciousness expanded. Not full synchronization, but enough to give them a fighting chance. "Look," Jessica pointed through the temple's quantum windows. The reality eaters were falling back, confused by the sudden resistance they encountered. Human belief was changing the rules of physics faster than they could adapt. But in their retreat, the beams revealed their final gambit. At the center of their swarm, a device similar to the one they'd found in the temple pulsed with dark energy. "No," Kate breathed. "They're going to collapse all local realities at once. The chain reaction would feed them for eternity," Jessica finished, "and erase our universe completely." The device began to pulse faster. They had moments at most. Kate looked at her companions, her oldest friends, now expanded into infinite versions of themselves across multiple realities, ready to try something really impossible. Torres managed to grin despite existing in 7 dimensions at once. Define impossible. "We're about to rewrite the operating system of reality itself," Kate said. "And we got about 30 seconds to figure out how." The fate of every reality hung in the balance. The temple network hummed with power, and humanity prepared to discover just how impossible they could be. 30 seconds. Dr. Jessica Anderson had never felt more human than in this moment. As she existed across multiple dimensions, her consciousness expanded beyond anything evolution had intended. She could see Kate Sullivan and Michael Torres not just as they were, but as every version of themselves that had ever existed or could exist. 25 seconds. "The temple network wasn't built to repair reality," Kate said, her voice resonating across quantum frequencies. "It was built to teach us how to remake it. We're not the maintenance crew. We're the new architects." The Reality Eater's device pulsed darker, pulling the fabric of existence toward its inevitable collapse. Through the temple network, Jessica could feel other humans across the galaxy fighting similar battles, each one discovering powers they never knew they had. 20 seconds. "The precursors didn't just engineer our minds," Torres realized, his consciousness touching the deepest temple protocols. "They engineered our souls, our ability to dream, to imagine, to believe. It's all part of the same quantum architecture." 15 seconds. Kate reached out, touching the walls of reality itself. "Everyone." Her voice carried through the network to every synchronized human. "Reality isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create. Every story we've ever told, every dream we've ever had. They're all prototype realities we've been practicing with since the beginning." 10 seconds. Jessica understood. All those years studying alien temples, she'd been looking at it backward. The temples weren't alien technology at all. They were training wheels, designed to awaken humanity's true potential. "Together," she called out. "Everyone. Believe in the same impossible thing at once." 5 seconds. Across the galaxy, humanity focused their collective will. Children who'd grown up reading fantasy books, scientists who'd questioned the nature of reality, dreamers who'd always sensed there was something more. They all believed together. 3 seconds. They believed in a reality where the laws of physics were more like guidelines, where consciousness shaped existence, where humanity's greatest strength was its ability to imagine something better. 2 seconds. The Reality Eater's device reached critical mass. 1 second. Reality held its breath. And then, everything changed. The universe didn't end. It transformed. The Reality Eaters found themselves trapped in a new framework of existence where their powers were constrained by human imagination. The very thing they tried to destroy had become their prison. "Look," Torres whispered in awe. Through the temple network, they could see the changes rippling across space and time. The gaps between realities weren't being repaired. They were being reorganized. Humanity's collective consciousness had created a new multiversal architecture, one that was both more stable and more flexible than the original. The council ships in orbit watched in amazement as reality stabilized around them. Ambassador Zrixtal, observing through quantum sensors, finally understood why the precursors had chosen humanity. No other species would have thought to solve a structural problem by reimagining the entire building. Kate laughed, the sound echoing across dimensions. "We did it. We actually did it." "What exactly did we do?" Torres asked, still existing in multiple realities at once. "We grew up," Jessica answered. The temples were never meant to be permanent. They were scaffolding, helping us develop until we could take over as reality's caretakers. Through the network, they could feel the temples beginning to power down. Their job was done. Humanity had awakened to its true purpose. So what now? Torres asked, watching the reality eaters being contained by humanity's collective will. Kate smiled, her consciousness touching the edges of possibility itself. Now we start the real work. Reality needs active management, and we're the only species crazy enough to handle the job. Jessica looked out at the transformed Mars landscape, where multiple realities now coexisted in stable harmony. We should probably write a new warning, she mused. Don't explore ancient temples, unless you're ready to become a multidimensional guardian of existence itself. Somehow, Torres laughed. I don't think anyone's going to believe it until they see it for themselves. And across the galaxy, humanity began its new role as reality's architects and guardians, their impossible dreams becoming the foundation of a new and better existence. After all, that's what they were engineered for.